much power to anyone who's spent a significant time in the Bay Area. We see your contributions, even though we have some great natives as well. If you
Cool.
did stand up or improv or sketch or anything in the Bay Area, you're gonna notice it when you see who they hang out with and see what the content they produce.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Top 5s with Don SILL. I'm your host, Don SILL, and we got another great Top 5 in store for you today. It's the Top 5 Bay Area comedians. I love the Bay Area. I love everything about the Bay Area. I love the history, the comedians, the comedy clubs, and it's on my bucket list of cities I have to visit soon. Joining me today is a Bay Area native and a retired comedian from the Bay Area, OJ Patterson. This guy loves the Bay Area comedy scene. He loves the Bay Area comedians. He even wrote a book about it. And as always, folks, please remember to subscribe, like, and comment below. We want to know what you have to say, what your top 5 is, which Bay Area comedians you love the most. But without further ado, let's get right to it, folks. It's me and OJ Patterson with the top 5 Bay Area comedians. OJ, Charles Orenthal James Patterson, how are you, sir? How's everything going?
Hi, Don. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, this is awesome having you. I know you co-wrote the book with Nina G, the Bay Area stand-up comedy, A Humorous History. Great book. I got to read some of it. It's very fascinating. What I like about it, too, is in the beginning, you guys talk about yourselves and your backgrounds. And I just found it really interesting to see everyone's kind of journey into how they discovered stand-up comedy. So tell everybody with you how you kind of discovered stand-up comedy and got so interested into it.
Yeah, it's the perfect comedian origin story. Latchkey kid, child of divorce. No one's paying attention to the media that you're consuming. I was also coming in around the height of Kazaa and BearShare and all these file transfer programs. So you can catch a lot of Comedy Central Presents mislabeled comedy albums. I think there was a 24-hour radio station called Radio Chicago that did just all comedy.
Nice.
That you could just put into like an RSS feed on your iTunes. Went to bed listening to like DVD commentaries for like Superbad and Chappelle Show and all this other stuff. So by every metric, I was a fan of stand-up. And then by the time I went to college and I came back, I just found this entirely new world of stand-up comedy that was like local and punk rock.
There you go, man. Yeah, it's cool to hear how you absorbed it all and just started, watching comedy every way you could, and I think that happens to a lot of us who get hooked on comedy. You just you start digging into the origins, finding stuff, the history of it, and who inspired this guy? Oh, that guy's awesome. Who inspired that guy? And you just kind of keep digging until you kind of get to the roots of it all. You're a Bay Area guy, born and raised?
Yep, I was born in the Kaiser in Hayward, and then I bounced all over, but primarily I was in a place called Pittsburgh, California, which confuses most of the country, but it's a cool little city.
Nestled among the hills of Northern California, less than an hour from San Francisco, and just a short drive to wine country and the redwood forests.
Awesome, man. And I know the Bay Area has such a rich history for comedy, for the arts. Like San Francisco gets a lot of the attention on stuff that's done in the past with, the Hungry Eye and Purple Onion and clubs like that with Lenny Bruce, Mort Saul, Phyllis Diller. Then later on you had, Robin Williams, Kevin Meaney, and all those guys kind of stormed the castle, so to speak. So there's been so much great stand-up through the years, and that's what I love about this book, is it really kind of brings that to light, where people, who might only think of San Francisco as, the beatniks or the hippies or, Haight Street and Ashbury and all that stuff. But the comedy scene was so vital and so important to the history of comedy. It's crazy, and it's still going strong. You still got GOVS and the Punchline and these prominent clubs that are still rocking.
You guys have one of the best comedy rooms literally on earth.
Now, you are also a comedian?
I'm a retired comedian. You know, yeah. I get my drink tickets in the mail. That's part of my pension. Can't be out in these streets.
Yeah. So when during your time as a stand-up, what was the scene like?
It was I think I always say it on the low key, but I think the recession created an entire generation of stand-ups. I think a lot of people were coming out of college in the late 2000s with, you know, less to do, less prospects. So they're like, you know what, if I can't get my dream job, if I can't, you know, find the college that will take me to where I want to go, let me try the stand-up thing. So it felt like a shift because San Francisco is always shifting. There'll be entire, you know, classes of stand-up comedians who will get hot, you know, become like, you know, local headliners and local hosts for the comedy clubs. They get a level of prominence, maybe a credit or two. They move to New York, they move to LA. And then almost like just this self-perpetuating thing, a new crop of people show up in the San Francisco area at the same time.
Right.
And then they become the new guard, and the cycle continues. When I started, you had people like Emily Heller, who now wrote on Barry, and then you had, you know, Moshe Kasher, you had Greg Edwards, just like people who were great mentors and great people to look up to. It's just like, all right, they're killing it. And then you also had the old guard of your Will Durst, your Larry Bubbles Browns, who were still around. They weren't necessarily come to the open mics, but they were they're like the sages of the scene. So as long as there was like that back and forth between the youth, people that were leaving, the people who've always stayed, there just felt like a constant, you know, it wasn't just anybody just like promoting themselves to the top. Like it was a level of meritocracy, I think.
I was a spazzy weirdo. We're our own thing.
Well, with the Bay Area comedians, a lot of great ones to pick here. So we decided, I know we spoke a little earlier, kind of via Messenger, that we were going to stick with comedians that are still alive in this one. Just because there's so many late great comics that were vital, whether it's like I said, just like Phyllis Diller, Lenny Bruce, Robin Williams, all these guys, and who really are a major part of the evolution of comedy. But so I just wanted to kind of stick to these comedians that are still here with us, and do these top five. Also, I wanted to see if they mattered, if they were like born and raised in the Bay Area, or if they came of age with their act in the Bay Area. I don't know if that's something that matters to you and how you did your list or not.
I mean, there's many ways that someone could be a Bay Area comedian. So I don't try to, you know, I know people who, like we claim, or at least I do, I claim Patton Oswalt, he was probably in the Bay for 3-4 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you from San Francisco, please welcome Patton Oswalt.
The theory of the book, we posited that something changes in you if you go to the Bay. Like you could be who you always have been, but that level of diversity in terms of race, gender expression, sexual orientation, like you're gonna be seeped in something, and the people around you are seeped in something. So, you know, much power to anyone who's spent a significant time in the Bay Area. You know, we see your contributions, even though we have some great natives as well. If you did stand up or improv or sketch or anything in the Bay Area, you're gonna notice it when you see who they hang out with and see what the content they produce.
Awesome. Well, on that note, let's get right to it, man. Let's get to our top 5 lists here. OJ, who do you got for number 5?
Number 5 is Oakland native He's an author, he's an actor, he's a director. He was like a rave kid, but did it completely sober because his life was completely full of turmoil when he was a teenager as an addict. He grew up, did stand up in the Bay, became like the SF Weekly one to watch, the East Bay Express shows that you need to watch. Eventually, moved to LA and reached the prominence of, recording a special in his hometown, which is a comedian's home. It's just a dream if you're a comic. His name is Moshe Kasher.
Great pick. Yeah. So now you say you knew Moshe, right?
I met him a couple times. We did a little interview for the blog that eventually became the book. And he was just on the way out when I was on the way in. But it was always like, if he's at the Punch, especially on a Sunday, like, you go. And I think of all the people on my list, I think he really represents not the dying legacy, but like in San Francisco in the 80s, for whatever reason, whether it was the cable cars, whether it was something else, a lot of people spoke really fast. Like Robin Williams, Stephen Pearl, Warren Thomas, like they were fast speakers. And it was almost like free association. And with some of Moshe's best riffs, he can really go there too.
Thank you for asking. I have an enormous penis. I appreciate you posing the question. It's very large. I found out recently how big it was. I was with a woman. Oh, I fuck women, by the way. Surprise, everybody. I just look like this.
Yeah, he's been around for a while, right? He's been on the scene for quite a bit. Really seasoned up guy, and pretty solid staple of the Bay Area scene.
No, look, I know that the Bay Area is a hotbed of sexual diversity, and I'm from here. And so, I respect that about it a great deal. It's a very important place to have, a place like Oakland and San Francisco, which is like sort of the sexual safe zone. You know what I mean? Like, basically, if you were born gay in Alabama, it's time to pack up and move to San Francisco immediately.
I didn't realize he was from Oakland. Does he still there in the Oakland circuit? Does he mainly work the San Fran Punchline and stuff like that?
He lives in LA now.
Okay, yeah.
He comes, I think one of the cool things about, like, say what you will about parent companies, I think the clubs in San Francisco have a real understanding and appreciation of the people who grew up there and who developed there. So there'll be like, a yearly tradition of like, all right, Greg Proops is coming every New Year's Eve, and Arj Barker's coming every April. So you'll see Moshe come back every once in a while.
Yeah, he's brilliant too. He's a very kind of smart type of comedian with very crafted punchlines, and I dig what that guy's doing. And like I said, he's been around for a long time. And
look, I love the hippies, but I did get into a small fight with a hippie recently. I was just explaining to her my theory that part of the process of becoming an adult is admitting to yourself that the Doors were a shitty band.
I think he's originally from my neck of the woods, and then went over to over there. But it's all good, man. Moshe Kasher. And, I noticed that, too, when it comes to the comedy scene. There is a lot of bridge between New York and the Bay Area, which is crazy. Like, even especially in the early days with Lenny Bruce and Mort Saul and that whole movement of the stand-up in general. I think both cities played a really huge part in that era, in that time of passing of the guard of the old school Catskills versus new school Mort Saul style. So it's just something cool that I've noticed after talking with Nina and now talking with you. It's just cool that we have that in common, these two cities.
Ha 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 ha. F you.
All right, so moving along here, for me, my number 5 is, to me, especially after talking with Nina, doing the research on it, this particular comedian, it became clear to me that he and his wife are true staples of this comedy scene from the 80s all the way through to now, and this is Will Durst. I I think like Will Durst, he feels like he's been around forever. He's been in comedy for as long as I remember comedy, with his political satire. And one thing I like about him as a political comedian is he seems bipartisan. He'll go at both sides. He's not a one-sided guy. He's not like this super conservative guy who's just ripping on liberals. He's not this liberal comedian just ripping on conservatives. He's right down the middle, giving it to everybody. That's the way I think comedy should be done.
President of the United States does not believe oral sex is adultery. Cool. President said so. Sorry, honey, I got to invoke my executive privilege at this point.
He's been around, and I think he's a real, the way he comes across to me anyway, he's a real staple of the Bay Area. I think that it would be somewhat of a rite of passage to, if you're a comedian in the Bay Area, to work with Will Durst, or to meet him, or to have him introduce you or something like that, or to be in the same room with him. I just feel like he's that guy.
The myth, the legend, undoubtedly the greatest political comedian, not just from San Francisco, but in America, Mr. Will Durst!
He's like, I think every city has that guy, whether it's like Don Gavin in Boston, or or like Richie Minervini over here in Long Island. We got these certain guys, like godfathers of our scene, and I feel like Will Durst may be that guy.
Spying, CIA outing, medical marijuana busting, Constitution shredding, Halliburtoning, bicycle falling, brush clearing, monkey faced, hunchback, pretzel choking, draft dodging, trust funding, Muslim baiting, hurricane disregarding, oil company filleting.
Oh, he's definitely that guy. I think of that whole Holy City Zoo scene. I mean, he had the most skin in the game as a one-time owner of the place. He was there when it went down. He has all the bona fides you need to be a great San Francisco comedian. He's won the San Francisco International Comedy Competition back in the 80s. He's, headlined and been able to maintain kind of a local celebrity status, which is really hard when you don't have a lot of people really pushing for you in the press, and you're from a transplant city like San Francisco. You lose a lot of writers who have a lot of reverence for kind of the local flair, and Will Durst has always been Will Durst.
My name is Will Durst. I'm a political comedian, which means sometimes there's nothing going on and I'm screwed. But not now.
Whether you catch him whether you're introduced to him at the punchline, at like a Sunday showcase, or you just hear about like the 80s, you slowly realize that like he is holding the torch for those guys. There's a documentary he was a part of. I think the local TV station picked it up, but when I saw it, it was like, all right, here's this guy who like embodies kind of I'm going to San Francisco to do comedy energy that so many people like Bobcat Goldthwait, like Ellen DeGeneres did. Like, he's from the Midwest. They had weird ass cabaret license rules back there. Yeah. Comes to San Francisco, and not only is he a political comedian, he is a traditionalist. He set up Punch. It's not that he can't think in a more like kind of San Francisco weirdo abstract terms, but like his jokes deliver every single time.
San Francisco, the only town in the world where guys in motorcycle leathers trade recipes.
He needs his own book. The thing that he went through, like kind of the performances that he did. There's this beautiful motif in the Three Still Standing documentary that I saw that just showed like he had like just papers and papers and papers and papers, and he was just writing and reading and reading and reading his jokes and dropping the paper, and by the time he was done with that performance, like the whole place was littered. And it's just such an ethic to Will Durst, and that's why he's a champion of Bay Area comedy.
Awesome, man. Very well said. Very well said. And Yeah, it makes me want to just watch more Will Durst stuff right now. Just kind of absorb. I love those kind of comics that have that work ethic and that dedicated to the craft, and no matter how long they've been in it, it never gets old. You know, that like they still love it, and that says a lot for, you know, when you do what you love, man. There's nothing better. That's the best life. You know.
Yeah. My lovely wife, Debbie Ann, and I have been married 29 years, 6 of the happiest years of my life. No 2 weeks contiguous. And I don't regret one day. And that one day I don't regret was a Tuesday in May of '84, because she was passed out. But
Will Durst, great. So that's number 5. Now we're moving along. We're at number 4. OJ, what do you got?
I have someone who I don't believe was born in Sacramento, but it became a home for him. He went to, I believe, UC Berkeley after high school, and there he kind of, you know, learned what he really wanted to do. I think this is common of a lot of Bay Area comedians. He came in and he just wanted to be funny. You know, he wanted to be as funny as the zeitgeist is, you know, not to discredit someone who takes a while to find their voice, but he was just doing his thing, you know? And over time, he eventually relocates to LA, still keeps his ties to the Bay Area. But the coolest thing is that over time, because of the internet and everything that you can access from it, you get invested with him, and he's going on The Daily Show, and he has his own show on Netflix, and he's doing these sketch comedy group, and you're just like, oh, this is like watching kind of like an all-star in the NBA in real time, you know? And it's just like the Mike Conley style all-star, where it's like it took a little while to get there, but you know, we always knew he was good, and that's why number 4 is Hassan Minhaj.
Ah, very nice, yes.
I've seen him live a couple times. You know, he was one of the few people that I knew that would like, there's a great tradition in the Bay Area of doing too many sets. Like you have Sammy K.O. Bade do 1,001 sets, just bouncing up and down the I-5 from LA to the San Francisco, which is nuts. And I would just see, you know, Hassan at an open mic at the Brainwash in the south of Mission, and he was just like, he was just doing it, you know. He was really smart, really like, you know, really crisp joke writer, but he really came to prominence and really came into form with another, I would say, synonymous tradition of like the one-person show.
And I know 9/11 is a super touchy subject. I understand, you know, because when it happened, everyone in America felt like their country was under attack. But on that night, September 12th, it was the first night of so many nights where I felt like my family's love and loyalty to this country was under attack.
Hassan he did a show called Homecoming King, where he just basically told his experience of being South Asian, living in Sacramento, you know. And there's just such an understanding of the narrative nuance of stand-up, you know? Like, as much as I love, you know, I love a prior bit that's just him being Mudbone for 17 minutes. But then you hear about these stories of him at the Comedy Store, and he's just making people weep because he's like expressing like a genuinely human emotion. You know, he's like, oh, I'm gonna pretend that I'm God and I came down to find my son and you guys killed him, and I completely level a comedy club in a completely different way.
All right, look, I just like to see my son. Anybody see my kid? Say, you what? You crucified my son and you worship me? That's heavy.
Right, yeah.
So you get a lot of that from everything that Hassan's done.
I think Hassan is great. He really started breaking through the mainstream after he did like that political correspondence dinner.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Legendary.
Yes. And that was what really catapulted him, I think, to the conversation.
anything is possible.
I think he was bubbling for a long time as a rising star, like you said, and it was like, like watching this future all-star MVP, working out, and but yeah, he's sharp, he's smart, and he has some bite in his punch. He's not afraid, and that's everything you need in the stand-up.
Hillary Clinton wants to be president so bad. She's willing to sit in the same office not a different office, not a replica scandal office, the scene of the crime. Now look.
I think whenever you get up there on the stage, the comedy stage, but especially at a correspondence dinner with all these important people out there on both sides of the aisle there, and you're going for it, guns blazing, metaphorically speaking, I think that takes some chutzpah and some moxie, and Hassan has that. And yeah, he earned my props when I saw that bit, and I was like, wow, this kid he's got something here, and he took the ball and ran with it, and he's been doing great ever since. Like I said, Daily Show, and just being on all these the Netflix and all that stuff. So he's really kind of moving forward.
Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. All men are created equal. Says it right here. I'm equal.
And that's cool. You saw him on the open mic level, man. You saw him.
I want to clarify that he was like, he was that dude, and he was just coming by to say hi to some people. And, and you got a lot of that dude moments where, like, oh, snap, Faison Love's here. And it's just like, oh, well, I guess he's got to commandeer the mic for like 20 people. And San Francisco's good for that because there's 2 working clubs, but also it's just like a cool vacation spot. So you'll never know, and never understand why some people are in town working like a corporate event, and now they are at your open mic.
Right. That's what I love about comics. No matter how big they get, they still want to work, man. They still want to just get up on the stage. That's the beauty thing about it. All right, so moving on. My number 4 is I love her. She's this great, strong, feisty female comedian. Not that matters that she's female, but and she would be the first one to tell me that. But this is Ali Wong. And Ali Wong is a San Francisco native, I believe. She was dubbed the best of the Bay by the San Francisco Bay Guardian. She, she's at her best for some reason when she's pregnant. But all in all, I love her comedy. I love that she can ebb and flow between, raunchy but she has a way of doing it, and not everybody could do this. Where you kind of dip into the raunchiness, but you never feel dirty. Like the audience never feels dirty. I don't think. I think and she can get pretty. She has so she goes there. But I still don't think the audience is feels as dirty as they would, like, let's say, a guy like me out there saying these dirty jokes,
You should feel so lucky, so flattered, so blessed, and highly favored if you ever had the opportunity to get your dick sucked by a woman that makes a lot more money than you.
So she has that kind of charisma that goes through it, and I just think she's hilarious. I think she is perfect for that kind of Bay Area vibe, and the fact that she's from there, just kind of radiates from her. I think like you kind of could tell that she's a California girl, a Bay Area girl.
Such a special place. That's where I first met some of my best friends. It's where I first met this guy, Shang Wang, who's a fantastic comedian. He's the godfather of my children. It's where I first met Dave Chappelle. It's where I first saw and met Patrice O'Neill, who helped me so much.
So I just put Ali Wong there for my number 4.
I will not tipped a bit, but she is also on my top 5. She would be my next one at top 3.
Okay, excellent. So we'll go right into it. Your take on Ali Wong is number 3, and also when we do agree on a comic, they automatically go to our final 5. So Ali Wong gets fast tracked to our final 5. But yeah, tell me a little bit about Ali Wong. Why you made her number 3?
I think Ali Wong, similar to Hassan, she's of the moment. You know, there's something very, I don't know, like, I think some, certain elements in certain eras of stand-up really have a defining kind of person, group of people, like cultural movement. Like, yeah, Black people had been in stand-up since nearly the beginning.
Right.
And there was, Dick Gregory, Bill Cosby, Flip Wilson, like, the whole gamut of everybody.
Right.
But Def Jam was a moment. Def Jam really encapsulated hip hop culture. It really encapsulated kind of like, the idea of like Black comedies being a theater experience. Like, it wasn't just like you see it from time to time in the come ups of, like a Whoopi Goldberg or a Richard Pryor. They're just playing like blues clubs,
Right. Yeah.
But to really define what comedy is for a generation of people, like everybody had those tapes, everybody had those DVDs, everybody watched Friday. Like, it became the lingua franca of Black comedy was Def Jam.
I ain't scared of you motherfuckers. I'm gonna tell you something straight off the motherfucking press. I ain't coming for no foolishness. In New York, goddamn it, y'all motherfucking women look good. Y'all like a bacon and egg sandwich look good.
And in a similar way, I think Ali Wong came in at a really interesting time when we're speaking and thinking and enacting all these like different gender roles and gender is being recontextualized for a lot of people, and it's becoming personal. And your sexual orientation also becomes like a thing that could be weaponized or a thing that can give you strength. So you have all these things kind of bubbling up. You're from the Bay, you're probably seeing it, Prop 8, all that.
Right.
And Ali flips it. Like, if you watch Baby Cobra, she's just like, I don't want to work. I don't want to like achieve these things. I don't want to like, I'm hardworking as a comic, and I crush it, and I'm really good. But like, I wanted a kid. I wanted a husband. I wanted to be like, I wanted a doctor husband. I wanted like she gives a real face to these things that like most people, if you took out the like college industrial complex, would be like, yeah, that sounds like a better life than like me trying to strive to get things that like I don't want or I don't need.
That's not the case with male comics. Once they have a baby, they'll get up on stage a week afterwards and they'll be like, guys, I just had this fucking baby. That baby's a little piece of shit. It's so annoying and boring. And all these other shitty dads in the audience are like, that's hilarious. I identify. And their fame just swells because they become this relatable family funny man all of a sudden. Meanwhile, the mom is at home chapping her nipples, feeding the fucking baby, and wearing a frozen diaper because her pussy needs to heal from the baby's head, shredding it up. She's busy.
And I think it's really hard for comedy specials, especially not on HBO and especially not known people, to reach a level of like cultural prominence. And if you're on the internet in 2016, you saw Ali Wong everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I think in addition to the gains that you saw in the general consciousness of like Broad City and Tina Fey and just all these like, not just like funny women, but like cultural icons, I think, to do that as a stand-up, to do that as a stand-up, like she's over here, she's killing it so hard. She's bringing rom-coms back and setting it in her hometown. Like it's like a very quiet, or not even quiet, but just like very understated meteoric rise. And you could see that when she was in San Francisco. She was one of the few people who really leveraged MySpace. She was one of the few people who really leveraged. She got her own website when nobody was doing websites. She had like a list, a mailing list. Like she was hustling, she was grinding. She knew what she wanted. She knew how funny she was. She knew what she wanted to say and the ways to say it, and it all kind of coalesced into like, yep, Ali Wong.
All I have to do is remember that there was once a man out there who was willing to yank out my tampon and replace it with his dick. It made me feel beautiful.
Wow, man, you got such a great way of putting things, man. That is very cool. Yeah, Ali Wong. I mean, you just made me like her more. So, so that's great. So for number 3, it had Ali Wong, fireball comedian, just a brilliant mind, and just the way her whole stage presence and persona. You already like her. She has likability through the roof. You already like her when she hits the stage before she even says a word, and then she gets you. She hooks you in, and then, like I said, she could say anything, and you go along with it. That's power in comedy, and she has that. For me, moving on, so my number 3, I've taken it back a little bit to the 80s and 90s era. He's still performing now. He's still active. He's still out there. But this was a dude that I always loved him. He's got some great bits. He's the pit bull of comedy himself, Bobby Slayton. Yeah, Bobby Slayton, the pit bull. He's been at it for a long time. Worked the San Fran scene. He's worked, in the same group. It's cool when you look back at some of those old pictures and you see him there, and he's there with Steve Pearl and Robin Williams and Will Durst, and all these guys are all young, and it's just trippy. You're like, wow, they all knew each other, that kind of thing. and not only they know each other, they're like old boys, like they all hung out, and we're in it in the beginning, man. And it's that kind of camaraderie that sets the tone. You know how it was when being a comedian. To me, when I was a comedian briefly as well in the late 90s, early 2000s, and to me, the best parts of that was the camaraderie, hanging out, hang out before gigs, after gigs, goofing on comics during the gigs, like your friends up there, whatever. Those are the moments I remember the most. And that's why I get a kick out of seeing those types of pictures, like from the Holy City Zoo and places like that where Slayton would work. And then you realize too that Bobby Slayton, when I discovered him as a kid, was already seasoned up. He's already doing late night shows and HBO specials and Rodney specials and stuff like that. And but here you see, this is where it all stemmed from. This is where he worked it out. This is where he became Bobby Slayton. This is where he became the pit bull.
Why do you need digital watches? It's like, okay, I wake up in the morning. You don't know the time. That's what's nice to have a watch. But to know the day and the date, okay, now some people might be very busy. You have to look at your watch. It's a nice little thing to have. But all of a sudden, when they start coming up with like computer games and a stopwatch and an egg timer, it's like, Batman with a little utility watch, And then the most ridiculous thing of all has to be putting the month on the watch.
So, he's been doing it since he was like 22 years old, and he's still doing it now. And he's had peaks and valleys throughout his career, but he's still doing it. And I'm just, that's a personal one for me because I'm a big fan of that guy. So,
hey, nice pad you got here. I used to live around here. And I made something of myself. I'm just kidding. He's got a great sense of humor. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, so Bobby Slayton for number 3 for me on that.
Yeah, Bobby Slayton is dope. Like, he's one of those people that he's not like the alternate or the dark shadow version of Will Durst, but like he's one of those people you see at like a comedy day, which is a comedy festival in the park every year, or at the Punchline, and you just get this vibe that, in addition to being like really smart and really funny, like he just has this edge to him, so that you're just like Will Durst, respect him all the, with all the fiber in my being, right. And I can just say, oh, hey Will, how you doing, when he's when I see him around, with whether it's completely necessary or not. It's like, no, you give Bobby Slayton his space. You know, he's here to work.
But you know, Italians and Jews get mixed up so much. It's like you go to Florida, the Cubans hate it when you think they're Puerto Rican. I mean, Hispanics, I don't know what to call them anymore. You're Latino, you're Hispanic, you're African American. I don't know what anybody is anymore. Everybody gets so upset by everything you call them. You know, you're not Indians, then you're Native American, then you're just, what I don't know. I don't know.
And I think one of the cool things is that he represents like an older San Francisco. I think a lot of comedians now will speak to like things that are a little bit too, like, you have to over explain the premise so that people are comfortable with the joke, you know, like the punchline could be great, but if you don't explain like, no, I'm okay with me, you know, bringing up this, that, or the third that we're culturally sensitive to now, and also this joke.
You think in a barbershop in China, they just have like 30 pictures of Mo? Yeah, I got a haircut for you. Right here, we have a Mo. You can get a Mo. Mo.
He is just like, he's like a boxer, you know, like he got the psychological part of a boxer too. You know, he's not like, oh, I'm just have these like cute little counter punches. You know, I know this joke's gonna make you groan, and then I'm gonna hit you with this later on to make you, you know, you're on your heels, and I'm gonna hit you again because you're on your heels. Like, he's like, no, I'm going to push you against these ropes, and you are going to get not only like body blows, you're getting rabbit punches. I'm coming to hurt you.
You know your problem is you're eating chips and you need a drink. You're not drinking. You want a drink, don't you? That's your problem. You don't drink enough. You don't relax. You're so uptight because you're with the daughter, the kid that's nailing the door, the father's uptight. Just one thing, you know what? You give me the bad vibe. There's this aura about you. You're not having fun. Relax. I try to make people comfortable, and I can't.
Because this is a Saturday night, and you're in a comedy club, and this is how it's supposed to feel like.
Right.
So yeah, every time, you know, one of the beautiful things about the punchline is that they allow you to come in if you were a comedian that they knew, if you showed up, if you like, I guess like one ticket and you're in for life. Because I paid for like one Sunday showcase and they let me into any show. Like if there was space in the back, I could hang out in the back. Yeah. Just going in and seeing Bobby was just like, all right, like this is not the way I'm going to do comedy, or I can do comedy, but like. We were talking to Ngayo Bilum, who's a stand-up from Sacramento, and he was just like, yeah, funny's funny. Like Warren Thomas could kill at the punchline, and Bobby Slayton could kill at Showtime at the Apollo. Like, it didn't matter.
Thank you. Mama, I'm at the Apollo. I made it. How you doing? Not bad for a white kid.
Right, yeah.
It's of a different time because there's so many different types of comedy out there and different people to appeal to, but it's also a very impressive feat to be that good.
Yeah, to be that good, and like you said, to have a kind of universal appeal, it's not easy to obtain that, and only a few can. Especially like you said, nowadays, it's even harder. But yeah, man. Bobby Slayton definitely has that ability. Like I love that you said he can go and like kill at the Apollo. So, and I think he has in his career. So yeah, to be able to do that is just says a lot, man. So yeah, so Bobby Slayton at number 3. Now we're already at number 2, the number 2 spot. Who do you got for number 2?
Number 2, I believe, is not definitional to her era of comedy, but she definitely, if you rock with her, she's like your person of that group, you know, that kind of Kathy Griffin, Janine Garofalo, Lori Keitlinger, that era of comedy is a little not defined as an era, but you could see how much they interacted with each other, and you could see kind of their influence, not just of that time, but of comedy in general. Just this idea of like, we're gonna take what Elaine Boozler did, we're gonna take what Marsha Warfield did, and we're gonna like down tempo it. We're gonna play the minor chords of it. Like we're we care about laughter and we care about entertaining people, but this is about like a centered expression. This is about being oneself in a world and in an industry that's dominated with like you gotta do it. You gotta come at it with the jokes, with the funny. You gotta make fun of yourself. You gotta do something.
Right.
And she was she was one of the greatest San Francisco comedy success stories. And then she became an even better and bigger cultural icon as someone who was like the face of her own sitcom, one of her only people of, her classification or whatever to get that. And then for it to have such a tumultuous relationship with it, and then for it to end very quickly, like her ability to take that story, translate it into something that like permeates her comedy, permeates her art, permeates her music, that's the ideal. That's, if not a entertainment or show business Hollywood ideal, being able to write your own story on such a big canvas is a San Francisco idea for sure. And that's why number 2 is Margaret Cho.
Yes, Margaret Cho. Great pick. Great comedian. She's done so much, and to me, she also does a lot. She is like a voice for the underdog in a lot of ways too. Whether she's talking about her her Korean background and Korean people and being Korean or being Asian in America, all that kind of stuff. But also she's done a lot for like gay rights and things along that line throughout her career. So she's definitely touches on all of those kind of hot topics fearlessly, and also I think she's on the right side of those topics in a lot of ways too. And she's just also very, very funny. I mean,
Dick is dirty sometimes. Not gay dick. Gay dick is flawless. Oh, gay dick is so gorgeous. I would suck it, but you won't let me.
the stuff she does with her mom and and all that is just so great. And I think that opened up a whole nother kind of genre of comedians that just came out inspired by her, just making fun of their ethnic parents.
Boop. Hi, it's mommy. I call to tell you 2 things. Number 1, grandma and grandpa are gonna die. I just think she's great, man. I mean, she had that sitcom and she's had like real tastes of big success, but she's definitely kind of like a comics comic in a lot of ways, and it inspires from within. I think that when she's on stage, that's when the comedians that are on the bill might come out and watch and see what's going on. What is she up to? What's she gonna say?
Yeah.
Oh,
and I would be remiss if I didn't bring up that, like, in addition to being a native of San Francisco, she was like, she took Robin's passing to heart and she made something positive out of it. She, started an outreach and did art and raised money for people who are unsheltered. And that's all you can really hope for someone who's like a native of a city, is that in a time of grieving, which, everybody was hit by Robin's passing really hard.
Yeah.
She said, I'm going to go back home and I'm going to spend the summer busking and just fundraising and being funny. And that's what Robin taught us,
This is like our tribute. This is the only way that I can remember Robin Williams, because I don't know if people understand what a philanthropist he was. No. And he raised $70 million for the homeless, and he gave and gave and gave. And I think the problem is that we never thought to teach him how to receive.
He was a valiant champion for the unhoused, and he was a valiant champion for, like, I saw Robin at like an open mic, just hanging out, and then the next week he was like, "Can I go on?" And everybody's just like buzzing with excitement that Robin Williams is choosing to do 10 minutes at this very bad open mic.
Wow.
So it's just like, yeah, if you have that energy, if you could be among the people and still be like a comedy rock star, that's super cool.
Right on, man. That's what I think is like I was saying about Margaret Cho, is that she gives back, and that she has a big heart, and it comes through in everything she does, and you know, again, like her comedy is just brilliant too, and I think it's original too. I think she comes from an original place a lot of times, and yeah, she's awesome. Great pick and well deserved at the number 2 spot.
Excuse me, but are you Japanese?
No, actually, I'm Korean.
Oh, really? That's very interesting, because I was looking at you and I knew that you were not Filipino, because I have very many Filipino friends, and you are not very Filipino because you are very husky.
Yeah, this is tough because there's so many comics, you know, that now you're kind of getting down to the last 2 here. It gets rough, but so I was, you know, watching some of these the comedians, and like I said, talking with Nina G last week really kind of helped me get my bearings on San Francisco comedy scene, and I think that this comedian from my number 2 is important for the times we're in now, and also, you know, for comedy in general. And this is someone that Robin Williams himself described as the lesbian Lenny Bruce. And this is Marga Gomez. So Marga Gomez is, to me, a really crafty, brilliant comedian who, you know, I just think she's very strong on stage, very funny on stage, and doesn't pull any punches really. And you know, I just feel like she is. I think she's going to climb higher. I think, you know, she's going to break from the San Fran scene. I think she's already kind of bubbling now, but I think she's going to break. I think she's going to be a face of comedy. I think she's a true future star, and what the comedy scene needs now, because I think a lot of people are concerned or whatever. You know, you talk to other comics, the cancel culture is going to destroy comedy and this and that. And, you know, I think that Marga could be the answer for everybody. So, you know, here's this comic who's, you know, the lesbian Lenny Bruce comes out, but that's not all she's about. She's very funny. Her material, it goes doesn't just stay on that and focused on that stuff, and she's, you know, got a broad spectrum of material and things like that. But I think so. I think she's the answer. She's still funny and socially aware at the same time, and it's not easy to do these days, because you know, there is some tiptoeing. You have to, you know, watch what you do and say, and we all have to adapt to that, get used to it, because it's just, you know, it's just you know, old school comics might have a hard time with that, but I think we're all learning to adjust and ebb and flow with that. I think Marga Gomez is the future. That's what I'm saying.
You never see groupies at the symphony, do you? You never see elegant women in evening gowns waltzing in front of the speakers. Yoo-hoo! Yoo-hoo! You with the oboe!
Yeah. I would say that Marga, she's incredibly generous. And I say that in that, like, there's been a number of people who have come into, like, being a San Francisco comedian, and you can claim them as a San Francisco comedian, but they got out as soon as they could. They never looked back. And Marga, she first of all, she felt very accessible in ways that, you know, from my own personal experience, that like, you know, you just couldn't with like a Bobby Slayton or a Will Durst. Like they're busy, they're working their things. Because she was in a lot of theater, because she was in a lot of like one-person shows, because she would run her own shows, she felt very like you could really engage with her and really interact with her. And then you get there and you realize, oh my goodness, I'm so far behind. You know, it's a reality check when you see Margaret Gomez, because like as you were saying, like things are changing, or always changing, or always had changed, and it took a while for the status quo to recognize that change. She's in the thick of it, and she's moving beyond whatever like anything that you're precious about. Like she's already explored it. You know, she's a daughter of a comedian, and she's just been entertaining in some way or some way, form, or fashion her entire life. And now she's gonna talk about like age difference in gender, same gender relationships. Like it's not just like, oh, isn't it wild that we can get married now? It's just like, no, this is what it's like to date a younger woman.
Add Margaret Gomez, you are a hypocrite. Add Margaret Gomez, you are passe. Add Margaret Gomez, you're not famous. Add Margaret Gomez, don't tell white people what to. Ran out of characters.
Exactly.
And then she has like some conceptual things, like on her album, she has this like Disneyland poet kind of like mismatched, like complete San Francisco like amalgamation of like sexuality and the absurdity, and her ability to pivot. You know, she's producing like hours and hours and hours and hours of material throughout her career. Is just like, all right, so in addition to her being very kind and generous and smart and engaging, she's also a genius, like categorically a genius.
Miss, can I have your sports section? Right, he's assuming because I'm a woman, I have no interest in sports. And I don't. But I hate to be pigeonholed. So I told him, no, I was just about to read the sports section. In fact, that's why I buy the newspaper for the sports. Because I live in San Francisco and I care how the 45ers are doing.
Right.
She does the work that a lot of comedians say that they want to do in terms of like being, you know, having a level of volume, a level of quantity, as well as quality, and also their voice and all the things that we were told to aspire to as a baby comedian. Like she's it. She already has it. She's ready to go, locked and loaded. You may not know her. You may not she may not always be on everyone's tongue, but she's doing the work, and that's really cool.
Right on, man. Yeah, she's like you said, locked and loaded and ready to go. I think she's been at it for a long time, been on the scene for a long time, and you know, I think one of the first bits that I saw of her was, you know, she was just talking about that she's like a minority of the minorities because she's a Spanish woman that doesn't speak Spanish.
My name is Marga, and I am a Latina who cannot speak Spanish. And I belong to a minority that is oppressed by the majority of Latinos who can speak Spanish.
Margaret Gomez at number 2, and I think well deserved. I think she's awesome, and I hope that she does get her due, which I think she will. I think she is the future. So, even though she's been at it for a long time, she'll be an overnight success.
Yeah.
All right, here we are, OJ, number 1 already. Who do you got for number 1?
My number 1 is a native of Chicago. He moved to the San Francisco Bay Area. You know, he did some comedy in Chicago, but when he came to the Bay Area, he was really good, really polished, and then Barack Obama happened. He wrote the first Barack Obama joke, had it on Comedy Central Premium Blend. He went on to develop a one-person show where he solved racism in about an hour. That got him in talks with Chris Rock. They produced a show together, which was brilliant, well needed, historic. You know, one of the few times that Black person has been the host of a late night show, and also introduced a number of Bay Area comedians to the wider consciousness, to the bigger picture in general. And then he parlayed that into, a travel show. He's done a few pivotal, high impact, high class, high production, high esteemed look backs on Chris Rock's Bring the Pain, and now he has a documentary about Bill Cosby. And he's just one of those people that you consider wow, he's really good at this comedy thing, but he's almost like, I think every generation wants or needs kind of like a political voice that's not just politics.
Right. Yeah.
They need someone who's kind of like not a moral compass, but like someone who you can go to or know to understand as someone who's constantly thinking in these parameters, and can present it in a interesting way. So my number one is W. Kamau Bell.
W. Kamau Bell, great pick. He's like an important comedian in a lot of ways, and he is the voice of these times. At least the last 15 years, I'd say 20 years maybe. I mean, he's just been there, and he had that show. Well, he had a show on Comedy Central. He had like a talk show for a little while, didn't he?
It was at FX.
FX, yeah.
Totally biased to W. Kamau Bell.
Yes. Yeah, and he was also host of United States of America, and I just think he's definitely, like I said, a very strong, powerful voice, and I love that. A lot of honesty could be said in jest or through comedy, and I think a lot of messages could be heard through comedy more so than they're heard in most other ways. So I think when you hear a guy like W. Kamau Bell talk, and you listen to his comedy, you can hear the truth coming through, and it comes in a way where it's more digestible and acceptable, and you kind of agree, go, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I see what he's saying. I get it now, that kind of stuff.
I'm sure it's harder to be the president. I'm sure every president who's ever existed has had that moment. This is harder than I thought. But the job is literally about not saying it out loud. I'm sure the moment you take the oath of office, yes, I promise and I swear, and they take you back into the actual White House and show you the real things that America's doing throughout history and all over the planet, you're like, oh my God, and then you have to go back and, hey, ha-ha, it's gonna be good, MAGA.
So I think, definitely a strong, powerful voice, a strong, powerful pick, and and funny and honest, and he's like a Will Rogers type for our times, who just kind of tells it as it is, and through a comedic lens.
I'd also want to add that and it's of a very specific, you have to be deeply ingrained into Bay Area culture, but the idea of the Black intellectual or the Black consciousness, that has a lot of kind of historical and also there's many ways to paint it as this other thing, but I think Kamau's very of the people in a way that's he's intersectional with every concern. He's not just talking about his own experience really well. He's expressing other people's experience in a really nuanced way that's very appreciated, just depending on very rarely are people allowed to see themselves on stage, so he's conscious of being all right, from my perspective, here's what's going on. I'm not gonna preach to you, but also this is messed up.
And I'm not mad at you, white people. Let me be clear. I'm not mad at you. You're not the ones who are here. You're some of the good ones. You're not like the rest. You speak so well. All I'm trying to say is, I like you like, hey, that started out as a compliment, but then it hurt my feelings. I know. I learned it from you, Dad. I learned it from you.
I saw it kind of like in real time of just like he does everything that most of the people did on our my list in terms of just like, oh, he's one person show and he's of the moment and all those other things. But like he had a situation where he was at he was in Berkeley where he lives, and he was going to hang out with his wife, who's a different race, and his daughter, and all this, a friend. And as soon as he approaches the person at the store or at the cafe, was like, no, they don't want anything, assuming that he was like nun house person trying to give him a street sheet,
Right.
And the saga that came after that really depicted like San Francisco Bay Area. It's not always this liberal bubble. It's double liberal bastion. Like,
wow, yeah.
That someone who's as accomplished as he was, as accomplished as he is, has the experience as a Black person, as just like someone who's like, I'm not going to, kind of like overperform my ability to have money or anything. Like, I'm just going to be like a regular Bay Area person, wear my flannel, wear my hoodie, wear my hat. And this is what happens to me.
Basically, on my birthday, I was kicked out of a cafe in Berkeley, California for talking to my wife. My wife is white, so obviously it's my fault. And they told me that somebody knocked on the window of the cafe and was like, get out of here, because they thought I was harassing my wife, which legally you're able to do.
It won't happen to like a Mark Zuckerberg, but this is what's going to happen to me. Let's talk about it. Let's have like, discussions in a community center and a community outreach. There was, that's a story within itself, that like in this moment, he had the presence of mind to be like, oh, this is a teachable moment. Like, even the Bay has something new to learn and something new to say about what's happening.
To fix racism for real, it takes a structural, like all the institutions have to be sort of destroyed, leveled, and rebuilt. But until we do that, public shaming is fine. I'm fine with public shaming.
So that, he helped save the punchline. He was like one of the main comedians who was like, hey, we shouldn't move this historical landmark. It's been here for 30 years. Let's talk to Google, whoever we need to talk to about keeping the punchline at 444 battery. So like, to be able to do all that he's done and still maintain a residence, as far as I know, in the Bay Area, it's just like, yeah, that's, if you say Bay Area comic, you have to, W. Kamau Bell that's what you can envision.
W. Kamau Bell.
Berkeley is not fighting the alt-right in the streets. This is how the residents of Berkeley were affected. It canceled the farmer's market. There was white women in yoga pants standing at the fight going, how am I supposed to get my kale, all right? What am I supposed to get it from Whole Foods like I'm a goddamn refugee? Is that what I'm supposed to do?
Great pick at number one. It makes me almost embarrassed about my number one. my number one, to me, again, going back and looking at the earlier days, like the 70s and 80s of the Bay Area comedy scene and the Holy City Zoo and all these kind of places that were popping back then, the other cafe and all these spots, and I saw this comedian who, to me, people forget how good of a stand-up he is. He got famous for other stuff, doing sketch comedy and things, but people forget that he was a stand-up comedian. He's a brilliant stand-up comedian, and he just loves to chop broccoli. And this is Dana Carvey. He worked his way up through doing stand-up, ended up getting a big break with SNL. Proved he's one of the greatest to ever do SNL, in my opinion. His just pound for pound characters, sketches, all that kind of stuff makes him definitely, if I was to do a top 5 SNL, he'd probably be on that top 5 as well.
We'd like to do the top 5 misheard lyrics, all right? Wayne's World, top 5 misheard lyrics,
Yeah.
But you know, it was Garth in Wayne's World, which is my background. Here, this is the Wayne's World set, so you can see that I have affection for that sketch and those characters. But yeah, I just think Dana Carvey is a hilarious guy. Stand-up often gets overlooked, but he is a great stand-up comedian. He owes it all to the San Fran scene, and yeah, he's my number one.
She's chopping broccoli, chopping broccoli, chopping broccoli, chopping broccoli, chopping broccoli.
He's no W. Kamau Bell.
Well, we have the dichotomy, you know.
Yeah,
we have a situation where you have a native who is a little bit of a lighter in terms of tone, but I think his own sketch show gets underreported as like this is where many of our, you know, the next 10, 15 years of stand-up comedy or sketch comedy or anything, it's not defined by that show, but like those people were there. It was like the Ben Stiller show's little brother in terms of like, oh, this is an all-star team that was just allowed to go crazy and have these weird sketches where Bill Clinton has like a puppy chest, like a dog chest where he was feeding puppies, and like this was on national like national television, not cable, like not HBO. This is nuts.
That's right, just suckle in there. Strap on, Tricia. Eat to your heart's content.
That was crazy, yeah.
And I think one of the few things about stand-up, like you can appreciate it so much more as an adult because you can go to comedy clubs and you can kind of be this like, you know, intellectual about it. But I would say a large part of my understanding of the world is through like SNL, and especially like chopping broccoli is like
She's chopping broccoli, chopping broccoli, chopping broccoli. She's chopping broccoli.
because if you really break down that bit, he's talking about like kind of the politics of of linguistics. He's really giving a shape to just like, all right, this is how music works. Like,
right.
Like it doesn't have to make sense. It just has to feel right. And then when you get into that, you could talk about anything. And just the words, like there's a lot of K's in broccoli. It ends with a beautiful, like funny vowel. Like this is like a dissertation. This is a term paper in the shape of a comedy bit.
Right.
In a special where like he was already famous. He was already like that dude as a sketch comedian, and many were trying to like position him as like, oh, is he like Myers? Is he like Jim Carrey? Is he like
right
all these other people? And like, yeah, he had those chops, but what he was really good at was like, I'm not going to, as impactful as I am and as good as I am, like these things, I'm gonna have something to say with this stand-up, which is like really hard. Like you hear about people who come in after 10, 15, 20, 30 years breaks, and like they're just trying to figure out how I'm so famous. This is what killed Steve Martin. Steve Martin's also was like a huge, like developed in San Francisco.
That's right. He developed the jerks persona and all that.
Yeah, like once you get to a certain place, like how do you be funny? Like not just like famous, or like, oh, he was funny for a famous person, which is in a lot of comedy clubs. Just like, no, this guy is like he won the San Francisco International Comedy Competition, rose to like one of the highest levels in comedy institution, and made movies and all this other stuff. But like, how am I gonna be funny? And like, chopping broccoli is that.
She chopped broccoli. She chopped broccoli.
choppin', she choppin', she choppin', she choppin', she choppin',
I'm just like, I could be funny in all these different avenues. I could do television, I can do movies. I'm very funny as an actor, but I'm going to create a bit that lives in your soul. Especially if you're like a kid and you hear that, you're just like, yeah, I'll be able to recreate that in my brain for eternity.
It is a great bit, and I love how you broke it down. And it is kind of like you said, like a term paper on a lot of you could take that for a lot of different metaphors, right, and work that in, and it's just such a great. Everything about it is great. His performance, the song, the meanings behind it, just like you just so greatly put it. It just you just made it even a cooler bit.
choppin' rookie.
Thank you, you guys have been great. Good night.
You're awesome, man. You are good at this shit, OJ. You should write a book. All right, so now we have all of our picks here. We got one heck of a list. Now we got to narrow it down to 5, to our top 5. We combine our two. Here we go. We have we have Moshe Kasher, Will Durst, Hassan Minaj, Ali, then we both agreed on Ali Wong, Bobby Slayton, Margaret Cho, Margaret Gomez, W. Kamau Bell, and Dana Carvey. So we already agreed on, I believe, Ali Wong.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's the only one we agreed on, right?
Correct.
So she goes to she's right there in our 5. So who do you think now needs to go? I think your number 1 has to go over to the final 5. I think W. Kamau Bell is a very important comedian on so many levels, and I just think he needs to definitely go. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. So we got Ali Wong, and what I love too is on this list is all the different types of comics. They're all so different in their styles. Like, you know, like I would love to see Ali Wong and W. Kamau Bell switch material one night. Okay, so what I'll do too is, man, this gets tough, man, because there's so many great ones up here, and they're all there for great reasons.
Yeah.
But what I'll do is I'll remove one of mine to make it easier to start to, and I'm going to remove Bobby Slayton.
Okay.
I'm removing him because if I had to choose, because you talk about elder statesmen and the scene, and when you talk about Will Durst versus Bobby Slayton, even though Bobby Slayton had more edge, and I think Will Durst is more of the San Francisco guy, so to speak. Yeah. You know, he seems to be like the home, like he smells like home. Like that kind, you know what I mean? Like that kind of guy. So
he's the mayor. He also hangs out with the mayor. Like he'll be elected until he can't be elected anymore. Like Bobby, he is that dude. You know, he's just like he's kind of like representative, like kind of where I think the Bay is going. Where a lot of people are just like, we can't live here anymore. So we're going to move to Vegas. Right. And Bobby just feels like, yeah, here's like a refuge for like a group of people who like miss kind of what San Francisco was in the 80s and the 90s. But Will Durst is like, because he's, in addition to everything he's done, he's on like the board. Like he's on the board for Comedy Day. He's on the board for these institutional things. Like if you need someone to, I don't know, be a judge at a comedy competition, like you couldn't do any better than Will Durst. And he was also, in a weird way, he really represents the stand-up Whereas if you want to be cynical, you're like, oh, Robin's an actor, Dana's an actor, all these people who are megastars are like,
right.
went on to write, and he was just like, no, I'm going to make a living doing stand-up in San Francisco, even though my comedy club died, 7 comedy clubs died in the same year. Like, I'm gonna maintain my presence in this space, and that's San Francisco. Like, the never say die.
Nice.
He represents in San Francisco.
Awesome. So Will Durst makes the final cut here.
Definitely.
All right. So now we got 2 spots left. We got Moshe, we got Margaret Cho, Hassan, and we got Margaret Cho, I said, Margaret Gomez, and Dana Carvey still left here. And we got 2 spots left. So
I'll give the same credence to originally what you said about W. Kamau Bell. I think Dana Carvey, if we can't have Robin, and there was a lot of people of that ilk of that time that would just miss R5. I think just the idea of like a comedy superstar that's still alive, that's still from he was born and raised in the Bay Area, like that has a regional pride. Like, for my generation, it'll probably be like Andy Samberg and The Lonely Island, and just this idea of like, comedy megastars born and raised in Oakland.
Right.
But and then you'll have like some people who'll say like a Mark Curry, what was that for them, or Robin, but like the person, he's almost like the Mort Saul of the celebrity comedians, and that like Dana was active, much like Mort was with Lenny and Dick and and Phyllis. He was active. He's just not necessarily like the person that you'll put on a poster, but like, why not? He's just as like dynamic and interesting and engaging and famous and talented as like all the other people that were christened like the clown prince of comedy in the 90s. So yeah, I think if you're gonna say like, oh, here's a resident that represents like Bay Area excellence, yeah, like put Dana up there.
Awesome, man. All right, so now we got 4 up there. We got Ali Wong, W. Kamau Bell, Will Durst, and Dana Carvey. For the final piece of the 5 here, I'm gonna let you decide it. It's all you, OJ. Who deserves to be on there?
I have to say it's Margaret Gomez. I have to say that of all the people that I brought up, your Ali Wongs, your Moshe Kasher's, your Margaret Cho's, like, she's either a peer or she stayed and really fought and really enriched the scene in a way that, like, yeah, we can say that, like, you could say that Will Durst is the mayor of San Francisco comedy, but like, Margaret's a council member. Margaret's something. Margaret's like, like an alderman, some type of commissioner. She's somewhere on that place, but in a very different way. She comes from a very specific artistic background that I think, like, Will Durst, very prominent in the comedy clubs, very prominent in theaters and things like that, and so is Marga. But Marga, she's fostering people. She's really nurturing, like, people who go on to do great things, and people who may not always get the opportunity to really thrive in a comedy club environment. And I'm sure that Will has passed game to other people, but like, for all the kids of the children of the queer comedy scene in San Francisco owe a huge debt to people like Margaret Gomez, because like, those people end up like changing or expanding, or just them being themselves is so political and so rich that you really do need people who are like, hey, I have the show in the Mission at this gay Latino club,
Right.
And I love you, and I want you to be on it. Like that means so much when you're starting out. And you know, that for me would be like a guy like Tony Sparks, who ran the Brainwash open mic for almost 20 years. But for a lot of people, and still me as well, like Marga's seal of approval is like, that's the thing that you can hang on. Like, oh, I'm doing the right thing if she is digging it.
Awesome.
And she's also great. She's great. She's a great comedian.
She's awesome.
Like she represents everything that San Francisco is as like a curator and a mentor, but also as an artist. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
You can condense all that into one person
and have it all. Yeah. And be a voice for all that and be funny, man. Like she's like funny, like she's great, you know, and she embodies so much. She goes, you know, all the way back to the Valencia Rose and to now, and she's still going strong, powerhouse, inspiring, influencing, giving people strength through laughter, and you know, you can't ask for more than that. And I think she definitely deserves to be on this final top 5 here. So here's the final 5, and we could put it in order if you want. This is the order I have it in right now. I have at 5 Ali Wong. I have at 4 Dana Carvey. At 3 Marga Gomez. 2 Will Durst. And number 1 is W. Kamau Bell.
That's a good list. I respect it.
Yeah, man. Dude, OJ, you're awesome, man. This was a great conversation. I always love talking to kindred spirits and guys who could really teach and teach me stuff. And you freaking awesome, dude. I couldn't ask for a better guy to talk to us about. Tell everybody where they can find you and follow you, and tell them about the new book and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. This is a lot of fun. Just talking about comedy is one of the great thrills of being in and around comedy. You can find me on Twitter at OJ Patterson, on Instagram at OJ Patterson, and the book is called Bay Area Stand-Up Comedy, A Humorous History. BayAreaStandUpComedy.com for more information. Pre-order, buy it from your local bookstores, none of this Amazon crap. And I hope you dig it, and I hope that it allows me to keep talking about stand-up comedy, especially from the San Francisco Bay Area, for days, weeks, months, years to come.
Awesome, man. Dude, you rock. I would love to get you back on for another top 5 down the road for sure. Yeah, man. And in the meantime, I'm going to go chop some broccoli. And thanks again, man.
You're welcome.
Well, that's the top 5 that me and OJ Patterson came up with. I hope you liked it. And again, please remember to subscribe and leave your comments and likes below. We'd really appreciate it. Want to know what you're thinking. And as always, folks, we'll see you for another top 5 next week.